Some Bank of Singapore employees were reportedly fired cause they misused medical claims. But what if I tell you it's actually something else So, recently you might have seen these headlines and asked yourself this question Which bank? Which Bank of Singapore? Here's the thing there's a bank in Singapore called Bank of Singapore. You see, banks usually have 3 tiers The usual retail banking that we all use, priority banking that the slightly richer people use, and finally, private banking that the super rich use. Once you are at priority banking, you can have a dedicated queue and then have better and more access in the bank, but you need to put a certain amount of money with the bank. Then there's a private banking for the super rich, whereby the bank treats you like a king and also helps you invest your money. For example, DBS retail banking is DBS. Then their priority banking arm is DBS Treasures, while their private banking arm is called DBS Private Bank. Yeah, it's common for banks to call their private banking arm private banking. However, for OCBC, their priority banking is called premium banking, and their private banking arm is called Bank of Singapore. This is why you have seen OCBC being involved in these reports. The story of why they took that name is a long story, but of course that's not common because it's not like organizations can just use the word Singapore as their name, right? No such thing. What? So, what happened to Bank of Singapore? For that, you have to know about medical claims. You see, usually as a working adult, if you are sick and want to take MC, you don't need to pay for the medical expenses. Heck, even if you are just sick of working and want to take MC, also don't need to pay the medical expenses. Depending on your company, they will provide a list of clinics you can go to, which you just go see doctor without having to pay. Or sometimes you can go to another clinic to see a doctor, then take the receipt to claim from the company. According to media reports, some staff members in Bank of Singapore allegedly abused the system, which led to a massive internal investigation that involved hundreds of employees. The investigation started last year. You see, CNA reported that employees can claim up to $10,500 for medical and dental expenses. So if these employees just head to clinics to see doctor up to $10,500, then that is supposed to be fine. But instead, these employees have made claims for bird nests, skincare products, supplements, and toothbrushes. Hey, see me say bird nest, do you know that bird nests are made of bird saliva or not? You want I make one for you FBI, open up! Yeah, but how Apparently, one clinic was mentioned. But how can medical claims involve skincare products? You know, like they are buying things from Watson or Guardians. News reports didn't mention how these employees can claim for these items. But in the Reddit thread, it's mentioned that the clinic mentioned might also sell certain items like it's a mama shop. The reason why the clinic was mentioned is that the Bank of Singapore reportedly sent an email last year to the employees saying that they cannot claim from the clinic anymore. Nevertheless, that is a misuse of the claims by the employees since the claims are only for outpatient services. You see, here's the thing. CNA reported that Bank of Singapore allegedly did not require itemized receipts for medical claims below $200. Therefore, those caught claiming for these irregular items were told to repay what they have claimed. And also for those serious cases, their bonuses were affected and they didn't receive a one-off cost of living support of $1,000 for junior staff across OCBC Group. But this entire saga came to light when website eFinancial Careers reported that Bank of Singapore has set up to 40 employees last week after an investigation of the medical claims. They have not provided more details, and some of those said employees are unhappy since they have repaid the claims. So far, this is what is known. But let's face it, this is a classic example of can abuse, of course abuse. Cause here's the thing, you might have seen multiple feel-good social media posts about how kind people are and how businesses let people pay how much they want to pay for food, so cause people are kind. Unfortunately, those feel-good posts might do more damage than good. Cause humans are kind of evil by nature. There's something known as the ego and superego, introduced by the father of psychology. He theorized that we are all it by nature, driven by our instinct and desire, ignoring everything else just to satisfy our urges. But we are held by our superego, which is our concern that is kind of created by society, or simply put, by the rules of our society. And with that balance, we've got the ego, which is kind of the it, always fighting against the superego. So in this case, it's like the superego has lost, letting the it take over. Because if it's just one person, there is the person losing to his it due to the strong it. But if it's many people, there is a system which are the rules that create the superego losing its grip. So remember, don't think the world is beautiful and that everyone is kind. Because here, it appears that the rules are too loose, letting the it overrun the system. Now, if you think I learned something, consider subscribing and also watch this video to be slightly smarter.